Okay, so when you're navigating the digital world, trying to find good info, especially on tech stuff that changes so fast, it can feel a bit chaotic.
Oh, definitely. Like you're constantly trying to catch up. And you rely on platforms like YouTube to find guides, tutorials.
Exactly. But what happens when those very platforms seem to be, well, pushing back against the creators making that helpful content?
Yeah, it creates this real tension. And it doesn't just affect the creators trying to teach.
It affects you, the person trying to learn.
Precisely. It
Mhm.
impacts your access to information.
And that tension, that's really what we're digging into today in this deep dive. We've got some source material you shared, and one piece in particular really unpacks this conflict bubbling up between YouTube and tech creators.
Right. So our goal here is pretty straightforward. Look at the key points from the sources. Try to understand what's really going on, the core issues.
And figure out what this whole situation, this sort of war, as some might call it, means for the creators, sure, but also for you, watching and learning.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so the main argument, pulling from the sources, it's pretty direct. It seems YouTube is penalizing tech creators.
And not randomly. The sources suggest it's targeted. Specific kinds of tech content seem to be getting flagged more often.
Like what, specifically?
Things like videos about self-hosting your own media, or tutorials on open source software, even just discussing, perfectly legal alternatives to mainstream services.
Mm. And the root cause, according to the analysis we read, isn't always that the content is illegal or genuinely dangerous. It's more about YouTube's own policies.
Yeah, how they're enforcing them. Seems really broad, sometimes vague, and, well, that ambiguity is causing problems.
Okay, let's talk about those policies. YouTube has this harmful or dangerous content policy. Sounds sensible on the face of it.
Right, you expect that. Don't show people how to do reckless stuff. Common sense.
But the source material digs deeper. It points to a specific section in there, rules about digital security content.
Yes. And the argument is that this digital security rule is being stretched. It's increasingly used, it seems, less for actual security threats and more like anti-piracy enforcement.
Even when the content isn't about piracy at all.
That's the core of the issue highlighted in the source. The example they gave was pretty stark. A creator made a video teaching how to install software on Linux Mint.
Okay, standard Linux stuff, open source, legit.
Totally legit. But the video got flagged. Why? Not because it showed hacking or piracy. It was flagged because it momentarily showed a downloader app.
A downloader app, like for downloading files.
Yes, and crucially, an app that was available in the official Linux Mint software repository. A standard, legitimate tool source.
Wait, hold on. So just displaying a legal tool from an official source within a free OS, that's enough for a strike?
Apparently so, in that case. That's what the source details. It does seem incredibly broad, doesn't it?
It really does. Which makes you wonder, if it's not really about stopping illegal acts in the usual sense, what else could be driving this?
Well, the sources suggest, perhaps unsurprisingly, that we should look at the business side of things.
Follow the money.
Pretty much. YouTube's whole structure, Google's structure, it's built on advertising and user data. That's the engine.
Okay, so how does that connect to targeting, say, open source tutorials?
Think about the specific tools often mentioned in the sources. Videos showing things like YTDLP or Revanced.
Ah, tools that let you download YouTube videos or use modified clients, often to bypass ads.
Exactly. From YouTube's perspective, that directly interferes with ad views. It cuts off a revenue stream and interrupts their data tracking.
Okay, that makes sense from their business angle. What about other examples?
Same logic applies to videos about alternative YouTube front ends, things like Invidious or NewPipe.
Right, those often focus on privacy, less tracking, sometimes no ads.
Precisely. Again, directly counter to YouTube's core model of ads plus data.
And even just showing people how to download videos for offline viewing.
Even that can be seen as problematic. Because once it's downloaded, YouTube loses control. No more ad impressions, no more tracking of exactly when and how you watch.
So the underlying message seems to be, if your content helps users skip ads or avoid tracking, even if the tools are legal and maybe even have other legitimate uses, it's a potential threat.
It's seen as a threat to the business model. That appears to be the key insight from the sources.
And focusing on that business angle, Maybe that explains some of the really confusing cases the source brings up. Specific creators getting penalized in ways that just don't seem logical otherwise.
Yeah, the examples are quite telling, like Lionel from Linus Tech Tips.
Oh, yeah, huge channel. What happened there?
According to the source, he had a video pulled or struck for showing ad-free YouTube front ends, which, okay, fits the pattern we just discussed.
But here's the kicker, right?
The kicker is that tools like the ones he showed are apparently available. Where? In the Google Play Store.
So Google distributes similar apps through its own store, but showing them on Google's other platform, YouTube, gets you penalized.
That's the inconsistency the source highlights. Yep. It's difficult to square that circle logically.
Wow. Okay. Any other examples?
Jeff Geerling, another well-respected tech creator.
Right. Does a lot with Raspberry Pi, networking.
Exactly. And he got penalized for a video teaching people how to use a Raspberry Pi to self-host a digital library of,
Oh.
wait for it, his own physical DVDs that he legally bought.
So ripping his own DVDs for personal backup and streaming, which is generally understood to be fair use or legal in many places.
The source is very clear.
Yeah.
This was about managing legally owned media, not distributing copyrighted material illegally, yet penalty.
Okay, so penalizing someone for showing apps from the official store, penalizing someone for backing up their own DVDs. These examples, like the source argues, they really do show, well, inconsistency doesn't quite cover it. It seems almost arbitrary sometimes.
And that lack of clarity, that inconsistency, imagine being a creator in that environment.
It must be incredibly stressful. You're basically walking on eggshells.
You're trying to guess. The source calls it navigating invisible boundaries, because YouTube apparently rarely gives super specific reasons for why a video violated policy.
Just a generic, harmful, or dangerous content notice, maybe?
Often, yes. Or something equally vague. And appeals. The source suggests they often feel like a coin toss unless you can generate a lot of public noise about it.
That kind of uncertainty, it's got to have a chilling effect, right?
Absolutely. It discourages innovation. Why risk creating content on cutting edge or even just slightly non-mainstream tech topics if you might get randomly penalized for it?
Yeah, you might just stick to safer, maybe less interesting territory.
Or, as the analysis suggests, creators might start looking elsewhere, to other platforms maybe perceived as more transparent or more aligned with, say, open source values.
This whole situation brings up some really deep questions that the source touches on, like if simply showing a tool is enough to get flagged.
Because someone, somewhere, might misuse it.
Does that mean creators should just avoid teaching about any powerful tool? Where do you draw the line? That seems unsustainable for education.
It really does. And if the underlying issue is about protecting the business model, as the source argues, well, what's next?
What do you mean?
Think about other tools that interfere with the ad data model. What about widely used ad blockers, like uBlock Origin?
Millions use those.
Or privacy-focused browsers? Brave, Firefox with certain settings? These also block trackers and ads. Could making tutorials about those become risky too?
That's a worrying thought. It really paints a picture of a strained relationship. A strained ecosystem, as the source puts it.
It feels less like a partnership to foster learning and maybe more like, well, like YouTube is aggressively protecting its financial interests above almost all else.
And the core argument from the author really lands there. These actions aren't primarily about safety or piracy in the traditional sense.
It's about defending the monetization system. That's the bottom line presented in the analysis.
And the cost of that defense, the source argues, is borne by creators trying to share legal, educational tech content.
And potentially, YouTube risks alienating that very community, the tech educators, who helped make it such a valuable resource for learning in the first place.
So if we try to boil this down, the key takeaways from the analysis for you, the listener.
Well, first, it seems creators aren't just thinking about policy rules anymore. They also have to consider the economic impact of their content on YouTube itself.
That's a huge mental shift. And certain topics, open source, alternative front ends, self-hosting, seem particularly vulnerable right now, even if the tools are legal.
Yeah, even if they're available through official channels sometimes. And the lack of clear rules, the inconsistent enforcement, it's definitely putting a damper on tech education and innovation on the platform.
It really throws that tension into sharp relief, doesn't it? The tension between, like, the freedom to teach and learn about technology.
And the platform's corporate interest in controlling the flow of information and, well, revenue within its walled garden is becoming much more intense.
It definitely leaves you with something to chew on. This whole picture, the source paints the vague policies, the weird enforcement examples, the creators caught in the middle. What does that really suggest about who controls access to technical knowledge online today?
Hmm. And maybe more importantly for you, where do we find the right balance? The balance between a platform needing a viable business, sure, but also ensuring your ability as someone trying to learn to freely explore and understand all the tools, including the alternatives that shape our digital world.